How's it going, YouTube? Welcome back to your favorite aviation channel, and today we are doing the June 2023 update for Chicago O'Hare Terminal 5. Today's update is based at 5 p.m. and you probably didn't notice by now, but I'm actually doing a voiceover for this update. And that's because due to my internship up in Rockford this summer, I'm only in Champaign on weekends, and this time around I didn't have enough time to film a proper update. And combined with the fact that the rest of this month is going to be super busy as well with live events and other videos planned, this was the best I could do. But nevertheless, I hope you'll enjoy today's update, and without further delay, let's begin. So as always, here's a quick overview of the entire setup. Not much has changed over on this side. I did say last month that I'm planning to add more 3D details to the central part of Terminal 5, but that's more of a long-term goal that I hope to accomplish by the end of the summer. What I did add though was an expansion to the already existing Terminal 5 expansion. It turns out that previously what I had was a bit too small, so I ended up fixing that, but in the process I had to get rid of the remote stands, which was unfortunate, but it is what it is. But the result is probably the most accurate rendition of the Terminal 5 expansion I've ever showcased on the channel so far, with respect to the gate placements and everything, and I'll explain how I was able to do this in a few moments. What I ended up adding to the expansion was another foil for gates M26 and M27. I have no idea why I never thought of doing this earlier, but in any case, in order to actually expand the terminal, I just used another one of my foam blocks, which you can see right here, and it gets the job done, so no big deal there. So the whole reason why I was able to realize this mistake of mine and eventually get all the gates in their accurate spots is actually thanks to a recent trip that I took. So my family and I recently went to Canada earlier this month, and when we took off out of O'Hare, we used runway 10 left, and I was actually seated on the left side of the plane, so I got to see all of Terminal 5 as we took off. As such, I got some good pictures of the expansion and everything around it. So finally, I had something up to date that I could reference for this replica. So that's all I have to say for the setup. Now let's begin with the aircraft. Starting at gate M3, we have this Delta A220-100 operating flight 1652 out to New York LaGuardia. This flight was, interestingly enough, actually swapped to an A319 a few days ago, which is quite rare. I guess the A220 operating that flight originally had a mechanical issue, so they ended up switching it to the 319 for that one day. In any case, that was pretty cool to see. Next up is a Delta 737-900ER filling in for the 717, operating flight 1631 from and back to Detroit. Here's a Delta A321 filling in for the A320. It's arriving from Seattle as flight 1376, and it'll head back to Seattle with that same flight number. Of course, here we have the 757-200 operating flight 1683 round trip from and to Atlanta. And lastly, for Delta, we have the A220-300 operating flight 943 from and to Minneapolis. Kicking it off for the internationals, we have Air France flight 153 back to Paris Charles de Gaulle. This is an A350-900. Now, Air France is flying the 787-9 to Chicago again. They switched the aircraft a few months ago, which was literally horrible timing. It's like almost not even a month after I got this model, they changed the flight to 787, and it's going to be the 787 for the foreseeable future all through, I think, November, December, so that's great. Anyway, next at M15, we have the Emirates 777-300ER on its layover in between flights. This will be the 8:45 p.m. departure back to Dubai as flight EK236. And normally this plane would be sitting at the remote stands by now, since Emirates arrives around 3:30 p.m. and then it has like 5 hours on the ground here. But I've noticed that it's really inconsistent. Sometimes ground handling will put Emirates at the remote stands for like an hour to open up space at Terminal 5, because historically it gets really congested with all the international flights coming in, especially during the evening. But other times they just leave the plane parked at the terminal the whole time. And the same I've noticed for other airlines here with long layovers like Qatar Airways and Royal Jordanian. So Emirates is just chilling here for the entirety of its 5 or so hour layover until its departure back to Dubai. At M16, we've got the LOT Polish Airlines 787-8 with the Polish Olympic Team sticker. This aircraft arrived as Flight 9 from Krakow and will be operating Flight 2 out to Warsaw. So as I've covered in previous videos, LOT is one of the bigger international carriers at O'Hare, primarily thanks to the huge Polish-American population in Chicago. And it's because of that huge customer base that Krakow is even served from Chicago. And previously it was, I believe, a summer seasonal flight, but now LOT has extended it to year-round service. And that makes Chicago the only long-haul destination served all year from Krakow. LOT also flies there from Newark, but that's also only in the summer, which is pretty cool. And then in the summertime, LOT is twice daily to Chicago. I've covered that in previous videos as well. But they have one plane every day that goes from and to Warsaw only. I believe that's flight 3 and 4. And then they have another plane that comes from either Krakow and then goes to Warsaw. So it comes in from Krakow as flight 9, goes to Warsaw as flight 2. Or on some days it does the opposite. So it comes in from Warsaw as flight 1, and then it goes to Krakow as flight 10. So pretty interesting schedule. LOT used to serve Budapest as well in Hungary, which is not even in Poland, interestingly enough, but that was a pre-pandemic route, also a seasonal service. But that flight has not returned since the pandemic. But either way, they have strong load factors on Warsaw service, and then now Krakow is extended to year-round. So I'm assuming that flight is also doing very well. Then at M17, we have the Royal Jordanian 7878 operating flight 264 back to Amman. So during the summer, as we covered in last month's update, Royal Jordanian has 11 weekly flights to Chicago. On some days, they have that extra morning flight, 265 and 266. It comes in around 6:37 a.m. and departs back around 11:30 a.m. And then that's in addition to the usual flight. This one, 263 and 264, comes in around 2:55, 3 p.m. and departs at 8:20 p.m. back to Amman. And pushing back from M18, we have the British Airways 777-200ER heading back to London Heathrow as flight 294. And fun fact, this model is actually slightly inaccurate for this airport because it's got the Rolls-Royce engines. No idea why, but the 222s that BA fly to Chicago, they only fly the ones with the GE90 engines. I don't know why, but they never seem to fly their 777-200s with the Rolls-Royce engines these days, which is weird because they used to do that in the past, but they're not doing that anymore. So if anyone knows why they do this, please let me know, because they do fly them elsewhere in the US, like Portland and Denver. So that's just something weird that BA's been doing lately. Also, another note regarding this particular flight, 295 and 294, it's actually going to be operated by the Air Belgium A330neo effective from July all the way till November. Apparently, BA is still really struggling with having enough wide-body planes, surprisingly enough. So as such, this flight will be operated by Air Belgium, the A330neo, for the next few months, while BA themselves, they're going to continue operating the evening flight 297 and 296. Next at M19, we have an American 7878. This aircraft arrived from Paris Charles de Gaulle as flight 151. Now, surprisingly, I haven't shown my American 787s very much in previous updates, but you'll be seeing more of these for sure this summer, since a lot of the seasonal European flights resumed this year. So Athens, Barcelona, Dublin, Rome, they're all back in operation for the summer. At M20, we have the Finnair A350-900 just came in from Helsinki as flight 9. And will go out later back to Helsinki as flight 10. Yes, this flight is normally an A330, but I am still working on getting that model. Next is the American 7879. This plane arrived from London Heathrow as flight 91, and this is one of 4 daily flights that American operate between London and Chicago during the summer, all of them on the 787-9. At M24 is the Qatar Airways 777-300ER that'll be operating the 7:55 p.m. flight 726 back to Doha. As you can see, I'm using my Phoenix models version for this update that I haven't showcased in a while. Previously, you've been seeing either my NG models version or the 2 special liveries, the One World or the Retro livery. Like I mentioned earlier with Emirates, Qatar is also a frequent visitor to the remote stands because they have a long layover in Chicago in between flights, but some days they'll just sit at the terminal the entire time. It's really inconsistent what ground handling does with these airlines. But that's actually how it was when I flew Qatar last year from Chicago. My plane was just sitting at the terminal the entire time from when it landed to when we departed. Next at M25 is the United 787-10 that came in from Tokyo Haneda as flight 882. Really interesting to see this flight on the Dash 10 for the summer because I'm so used to seeing the long-haul Asia-Pacific flights only on the 787-9s. But at least for the summer, all of the Dash 9 routes have been upgauged to Dash 10s from Chicago. So we don't even see the Dash 9 in Chicago very often anymore, or at all. It's somewhat rare now, which is crazy to think. The 7879 is we don't see them very often these days in Chicago from United. It's just the Dash 8 and the Dash 10. Here's a quick look at M26 and M27. This is a brand new gate foil that I added as part of the little expansion here. M26 in real life looks kind of exactly like this. It's just sitting straight out, like in a straight line. But M27 actually looks like it will begin operations soon. I believe this will also be a flex gate area like the other gates, meaning you could either park one wide-body aircraft at M27 or two narrow-body planes in the same space, so one at M26 and the other at M27. And here's a perfect example of that. At M28 is the Frontier A321 that came in from Cancun as Flight 45, and it's going to be Flight 44 out to Orlando later on. At M29, we finally have WestJet, the WestJet 737-700 here from Calgary as Flight 1588, and it'll be headed back out to Calgary as Flight 1589. WestJet used to operate this route back in the day, but they suspended it in 2018. They later came back in 2022 as WestJet Encore, WestJet Connect, or whatever it's called, with the Dash 8 Q400 with service from Toronto Pearson, but that route was a big failure. It only lasted a few months. And then WestJet once again resumed the Calgary service back in May of this year with a mix of 737-700 and 737-800s operating 4 times per week. So now there are 3 airlines currently flying between Chicago and Calgary during the summer. It's WestJet, United, and American, but United is the only one that operates the route all throughout the year. At M30, we have an American 787-8. This aircraft arrived from Athens, Greece as Flight 161, and this is one of the newly resumed seasonal routes for the summer. Next at M32 is the American 737-800 that just pulled in from Cancun as Flight 1563, just waiting for the gate to attach. Here at M33 is the Turkish 777-300ER, which just came in from Istanbul as Flight 5 and will be departing at 10 p.m. back to Istanbul as Flight 6. At M34 is the United 787-8 that's arrived from Barcelona as Flight 770. I also thought this route was summer seasonal, but apparently it's year-round now. So United resumed the service back in May, and it's one of 3 787-8 routes that they fly internationally from Chicago, in addition to Milan and Amsterdam. Here at M35 is United 737-900ER. This aircraft just pulled in from Georgetown, Grand Cayman as Flight 799. And then at M37 is the Swiss A330-300 that's here from Zurich as Flight 8. This flight is a 777-300ER for the summer, but I'm still working on getting that model. However, Swiss also operates Flight 6 and 7 during the summer. That is indeed an A330. So here you can kind of see how the new flex gates work. So you could park a wide body here at M37, but then that makes M36 kind of unusable. Or you could park a narrow body at M36 and then another narrow body at M37. Also, the parking line for M36 is actually a bit further down. It doesn't go all the way up there, so maybe in a future update I will fix that. Next at M38 we have a Southwest 737-700 here from Cancun as Flight 1512. And yes, that is a tug underneath the tail. That's just there for support because this model is annoyingly tail heavy. So if that tug wasn't there, this model would be tipped over on the tail by now. In the next gate, M39 is empty right now, but last but not least, yes, at gate M40, there is indeed an M40. I have confirmed that. We have another Southwest 737-700. This aircraft came in from Baltimore as Flight 1738 and will be heading out to Orlando as Flight 1739. So there we go. That does it for all the aircraft in today's update. I really hope you enjoyed watching so far, and do let me know what you think of the new expansion. It's unfortunate that the remote stands had to be removed for this because I really liked having those there, but there's not much I can do regarding that. In terms of news regarding O'Hare Terminal 5, Scandinavian Airlines, or SAS, they have leased a high-fly A330-300, registration 9HHFA, and this will be operating the Copenhagen service for the time being. I'm assuming they leased this out to account for an aircraft shortage, but I'm not too sure about that. In better news though, Cathay Pacific is finally resuming service to Chicago. They're coming back in October with thrice weekly flights to Hong Kong, and this time they're bringing the A350-1000. I'm really excited for this because Cathay is one of my favorite international carriers, and I've really missed seeing them here in Chicago for the past 2 or 3 years now. Sadly, it's not the 777-300ER like it was pre-pandemic, but the A350 is good as well. So on that note, that's all the news that I have for now. Thank you so much for sticking around until the end if you did. Lots of great stuff on the way over the course of the next few weeks and months. Of course, by now, I've already uploaded the first of 3 videos from my recent trip to Canada, so check it out if you haven't already, and stay tuned for more videos coming soon. Monday's video is actually unrelated to that trip, but it's still going to be quite an epic video. Something like this has never before been seen on YouTube until now, so be ready for that. And also, I am planning to go to Dallas next week for the Airliners International Convention if all goes well. I know a lot of people are going to be there, so hopefully expect some videos from that trip as well. I'm really hoping that it'll be a good time. But with that said, thank you very much again for watching. Leave a like and comment if you enjoyed, subscribe, all that good stuff. Until next time, take care everybody, and see you soon.